Seems hard to believe it was only a few short years ago that I met Jesus. So much has happened since then. It seems like a lifetime has passed, and yet it seems like only months. I have seen things that I never would have believed if I hadn't seen them with my own eyes. Miracles. What he ever saw in me, I do not know. But I was on this very pier when I first saw him. My brother Andrew and I had just come in from fishing, and we saw him coming from some distance away. It was obvious he was headed in our direction. He walked directly up to us. He said the strangest thing. "Come follow me and I will make you fishers of men." Any other day, anybody else who said that, I would have told them they were crazy. I would have cursed them, sent them away, and possibly even beaten them. But there was something in his manner, his assurance, something that came through him, a power, a light. That's what made us drop our nets on this spot and go with him. That was the moment. And this pier, the place that would forever mark where my journey began. At first, we did not even know why we followed. He had no money, no place to stay, and it appeared that he had no destination for the journey that he was on. But he had a purpose, and you could see it in his every movement and hear it in his every word. We knew who he was. Everyone knew who he was. He was that rabbi who was impressing people at the temple with his knowledge of the scrolls. I had very little interest in such things and even less understanding. It all seemed very mysterious and difficult to grasp. It was beyond a fisherman and ruffian like me. Yet as I walked with him and others began to follow, I learned not so much from studying the scrolls, but from studying him, how he treated others, the ones that the Pharisees would look and turn away from in the streets, the broken, the outcasts, the sinners. Not only did he not turn away from them or ignore them, he loved them. He truly loved them. He had compassion for them. And he gave them a vision of themselves that they had never known. He allowed them to see themselves through God's eyes. He allowed them to see their own worth, to see a way that was better than anything that they had known or even imagined. I am the one who was known as Simon, son of Jonah. But one day, Jesus pulled me aside, and he told me that my name was to be Peter, the rock. I did not feel like a rock. Maybe a rock that had been thrown into some strange place or placed in someone's purse as a trinket, but not a rock like he meant it. He meant it as something solid, something firm, hard to break. But in some ways, I felt more fragile than I had ever felt in my life. But because he saw me as strong, over time, I began to believe it. Even so, I made many mistakes along the way, said the wrong things at the wrong time, misunderstood his meaning so often. And my faith, it flew away sometimes like a leaf in the wind. Yet he always restored me, sometimes rebuked me, but always in love. And without fail, he always encouraged me and told me who and what I was created to be. A rock. We saw signs and heard the murmuring of the Pharisees who were threatened by Jesus' teaching of grace and mercy. They were outraged at his claim to be one with God and daring to proclaim forgiveness of sin over people. And there were plots against his life, and he knew it. But he never changed what he was teaching. He only spent more time alone with his Father, praying for wisdom, asking and seeking for the strength to face what he knew was to come. At last, we came into Jerusalem to observe the Passover. There was such excitement, even celebration, when Jesus entered the city. He was placed astride a donkey as a sign of respect so that he wouldn't have to walk. But he had walked everywhere he had ever been. It was as if the people knew that it was his time to be elevated. And the 12 of us, his disciples, we felt it too. We thought, maybe now he will be recognized for who he truly is, the Messiah. And his kingdom will finally be established. That evening, as we sat and were about to eat our Passover meal, Jesus took a bowl of water and he removed his outer garment, fastened a towel around his waist. He was preparing to wash our feet, a sign of servitude. I said, "No, Lord, you shall never wash my feet." And as he had done so many times, he rebuked me and said that unless I was willing to have him wash my feet, that I had no part in him. At the time, I did not understand, but I did know in my heart that I could never do anything that would separate me from him. And he did wash our feet. All 12 of us. Then he began to speak to us as he had never spoken to us before. Not so much in ways that needed to be pondered to understood, but plainly and directly. He was speaking of the time that he had spent with us very quickly coming to its end, but that it was a good thing. Because if he went away, the Father could send another to attend us who would never leave. The Advocate, Spirit of truth, his Holy Spirit. As we sat there sharing our meal, Jesus grew quiet. When at last he spoke, he told us that one of us was about to betray him. He was to be handed over to those who wanted to see his radical teaching come to an end once and for all. Well, I knew surely it wasn't I who would betray him. I loved him. I would die for him. I would never desert him. And I told him so. But he said to me, "Peter, I tell you the truth, that you will deny 3 times that you even know me before the sun rises tomorrow." I was crushed. I was crushed. The rock, his rock, was like the dust that someone would shake off of their sandals. Jesus then withdrew to a quiet garden and began to pray, and he took several of us with him to stand watch and pray. As usual, he went off to talk to the Father in solitude. The rest of us began to pray together, but we fell asleep. We were awakened by Roman soldiers and Judas, who was with them. Judas came to the Lord, and he kissed his cheek, signaling to the soldiers the one they were to arrest. As they went to see him, as they went to grab Jesus, I saw my chance to prove that I was willing to fight and die for him. And I sprang forth and I drew my sword and I struck one of them. But again, Jesus rebuked me. He said, "Put your sword away." It was a wonder that they did not kill me then. But they were there for Jesus. And they simply led him away as we watched and could do nothing. The rest of us scattered into the darkness like frightened children, not knowing where to go or if we might be the next to be arrested. I wandered through the city looking for a place to hide. And I heard people talking about Jesus being taken by the Romans and that they were looking for his followers as well. Just before dawn, a woman in the crowd recognized me as one of Jesus' disciples. She said, this man is one of them. But I told her to be quiet, that she didn't know what she was talking about. I told her I did not know this Jesus. Then 2 men agreed with her and said that they had seen me with him. But again, I denied knowing them. I cursed them and I called them all crazy. And I ran away. And as I ran away, I heard the cock crow when morning broke. And I was broken too. Because just as Jesus had said, but before the sun had risen, I had denied him over and over. Again, I attempted to hide, not knowing what to do. It was only hours later that I heard that he had been put to death on a cross and his body laid in a tomb. The power in his words was now only a distant sound in my ears. The miraculous signs and wonders, the healing, the peace of his presence, all gone. A few days later, though, Jesus appeared to Mary Magdalene. She ran to tell us about it, that she had seen him alive. And I ran back to the tomb with her, but it was empty. We returned to the place where we had been hiding, and as we sat discussing and trying to reason how this could possibly be, a light that seemed to come from everywhere filled the room, and Jesus stood among us. We were amazed. We were filled with joy and confusion, and he began to assure us that he would remain for a time and that we would see him in various places, but that very soon he would return to the Father and we would see him no more. And almost as quickly as he had come, he was gone from our presence. We wondered how long he would stay, when and where he would appear again, and when we would see him finally no more. As I searched my heart, all I found were questions. And I began to feel that emptiness again. It was as if I had completely forgotten how to walk toward the place that I knew he would have me go. I saw no future, only a past. A brief few years with Jesus and the past that I had always known. The life of a fisherman. My brother, Andrew, several others, and I returned to Galilee and once again picked up our nets. As we approached the shore, after a day of fishing with no success, we saw a figure standing there, and he called to us. He asked us how our fishing had gone, and we called back to him. It had yielded nothing. Cast your nets on the right side of the boat, he said. And when we did, we caught so many fish that we could not even haul the net into the boat. I looked astonished at the figure on the shore, and I realized it was Jesus. I jumped from the boat and I swam to him as the others brought the boat ashore. Jesus had built a small fire, and we all sat together and ate the fish. Again, feeling the peace and the power of his presence. When we had finished eating, Jesus looked at me and said, "Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me more than these?" And he pointed at the fish. "Yes, Lord, you know that I do." "Then feed my lambs," was his reply. And again he asked, "Do you love me?" And I said, "Of course I love you, Jesus. If you love me, then feed my sheep." But I ask you again, Simon, do you love me? I was hurt. Why would he ask me that 3 times when I had already answered? And he knew that I loved him. Yes, I had failed him. But there was no one or nothing that I would ever love as much as I loved him. And I raised my voice, yes, Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you. He simply smiled and he put his hand on my shoulder. And he said, then feed my sheep, Peter. It was then that I understood. He asked me the question 3 times because I had denied him 3 times. And he was completely restoring me to the thing that he'd called me to. The high calling of caring for those that he loves. But even more than that, he restored me in my spirit. Yet again, he had found me lost and broken and given me hope and purpose. And that is why I so often come back to this place, where my journey started, to seek him in times of solitude, to remember that moment when he found me, where I first followed and where I later returned, searching and questioning, only to have him once again find me, to teach my crippled soul how to walk again and restore my life.